show.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here this evening and those that are watching at home. This evening, we have a representative from the Allegheny County Department of Human Services that's going to give a presentation to the mayor and council about an alternative 911 emergency response program that they're developing a pilot for. So go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. I've been talking a lot with Chief Como from your police department, but it's good to see you all here today.
And if you could just make sure you speak close to the microphone, too.
Yep. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a project manager at Department of Human Services and working on a team. Kate Vanderweide.
I'm so sorry. Would you please repeat what you said in the beginning because they didn't catch that?
Yes. I've been working with Chief Como in your police department, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk with you about this alternative 911 emergency response. I'm a project manager at Department of Human Services. My name is Kate Vanderweide. The team that I work on there has been working on improving the crisis prevention and response system in Allegheny County over the last few years and continuing through the future, and I'm going to be providing a little more information on what that means. But I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about what alternative response is and what it could look like here in Penn Hills and what we've been talking to Chief Como about. And if anybody wants their slides over on the table, I think they were posted with the agenda for this meeting, and you all have it up there. So just to make sure everyone knows what the Department of Human Services is, the Department of Human Services is responsible for providing and administering publicly funded human services. This would be things like services for older adults, older adult protective services, job training and placement for children and families. There's children, youth, and families. There's CYF services and child protective services, after-school programming, foster care. For behavioral health concerns, we have mental health treatment and substance use disorder treatment services for across the county. Provide services for people who have intellectual disabilities and autism, emergency shelter and housing throughout the county, and also just miscellaneous work across the criminal justice system, like some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about here today. Thanks for knowing to change the slides. So our vision at DHS for an improved crisis system is that there will be more places where people can go to get help, so more brick and mortar buildings where people can travel to when they're in need of services or assistance. And that when they get to those services, those brick and mortar places, or in their own homes, there are more people who can help them. There are just more helpers available. And for people, you know, when you go and you try and get help from someone and they give you a bunch of referrals and a bunch of things to do next, sometimes you're not sure what to do still, and you need somebody to help you through that process. So how can we also ensure that there's more care coordinators and navigators available to people who are seeking help, improving access? And as you can see kind of from this slide right here, our vision is that over time, as people come to know about 988, which is the new national hotline for mental health and substance use crisis, that more calls that are related to mental health and substance use will go to 988 and fewer will go to 911. Here in Allegheny County, 988 services are run by Resolve Crisis Services, which is a UPMC organization. They have the call center where people can call if they're in crisis to get help. They have mobile teams where people can be sent out to individuals in the community for help. They have a walk-in center where people can go, and they also have some beds where people can stay for a few days if they need to. But we know that no matter what, people are going to keep calling 911 when they see people in need of assistance. And so we want to make sure that no matter what number you call, whether it's 911 or 988, you get the right responder that you need for the problem that you're having. So a piece of this improved crisis system is an alternative 911 emergency response initiative. This is a model that allows for behavioral health professionals and crisis workers to respond to 911 calls without law enforcement when the calls have been deemed to not require a law enforcement response. So it recognizes that traditional law enforcement responses might not be the best way to manage and improve people's behavioral health and mental health challenges, and it shifts away from this model in which law enforcement has really become the catch-all first responder system for anything that isn't a medical emergency or a fire. So they're not just responding to criminal complaints, they're responding to all sorts of things, and there are other people who can respond and help people connect to services. So we've been working closely with Allegheny County Emergency Services, which runs 911, as well as with chiefs around Allegheny County, including Chief Como, to try and figure out how can we design something that would work for Allegheny County while drawing on the lessons learned in other places that have launched alternative response initiatives. And we've also found a few other chiefs here in the county, including Chief Cole in Monroeville and Chief Delaman in McKees Rocks, who are interested in participating in alternative response pilots as well. So what kinds of calls might alternative responders go to? Alternative responders in other places, they have examples of the types of calls that they might go to, and I've gotten examples from the chiefs here about what kinds of calls they think they would send alternative responders to. So it might be something where parents are calling 911 because their kids won't go to school and they're at their wits' end. Where people who call 911 because they see someone who's publicly intoxicated and they're worried that they might get hurt. Neighbors who might call 911 if they're having arguments over their shared space. Coworkers who might call 911 if they haven't seen a colleague come into work and they seem like they were acting strangely and they can't get a hold of them. People who might call 911 because they have a mental illness and they're having hallucinations that scare them. Or maybe there's someone outside a church who's panhandling every Sunday, and people want them to get help. And so these are the kinds of scenarios that an alternative response team could go to instead of law enforcement to be able to assess the person's need, assess their willingness to get help, suggest services to them, and provide a follow-up care coordination. This is an incomplete list of other places that have launched alternative response programs. Some of them have been launched in the last few years, others have existed for many years. As an example, in New York City, the fire department EMTs and paramedics are paired with social workers to respond to mental health emergencies. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, they have a whole Department of Community Safety where social workers and counselors and peers are responding to these same kinds of calls. And in each of these places, they're drawing on similar concepts. They're drawing on similar ideas, but they're implementing it in a way that makes sense for their community. And that's what we're aiming to do here. Use the lessons that they've learned, the failures that they've had, and implement something here with its own local flavor. And so what responders do in these places varies somewhat, but when they go, they might include physical and mental health assessments, crisis intervention and counseling, motivational interviewing, de-escalation, mediation. Sometimes in some places they do some first aid or non-emergency care, bandages, Band-Aids, things like that. And then connections and referrals to services and transportation to where someone might need to go right then. So we're also planning to ensure that there's follow-up care for those folks, as I said, for care coordination purposes. So this is just a map of the places that have expressed interest in being pilot sites for alternative response: Penn Hills, Monroeville, and McKees Rocks. And we're also talking to a few other municipalities near McKees Rocks that might want to join in. And overall, the goals, I think you'll understand from what I've described, is that you want to de-escalate crises in your community. Oftentimes you can do that. When calls come in to 988 and they're talking to them on the phone, 80% of those calls are generally handled just over the phone without anything else. So this is going to be a situation where people are able to go out, de-escalate in the community, figure out what might be next steps, and leave people in the community better than they were. There's also reducing unnecessary emergency room visits. So sometimes when you call EMS, that people are nervous, people are scared, they take you to the hospital. There's really no other options. So we want to reduce those that are unnecessary and ensure that ones that are necessary still happen. We want to reduce the time that officers are spending on behavioral health type calls. That's something that we've heard from a lot of the chiefs that we're talking to. That concerns them. They don't have enough capacity in their officer staff to really handle these calls. They often take a lot longer than criminal calls or other types of calls. And we want to offer and complete connections to care for those who want it. And we want to just completely remove any chance of arrest or incarceration, which can happen if law enforcement is there. We were also lucky enough to get assistance. We applied for and got assistance from the Harvard Kennedy School Government Performance Lab. So there are consultants there who have been working with us deeply every week, who have met with all the chiefs and came to do a site visit last year to help ensure that we are implementing alternative response in a way that works for us and in a way that uses those lessons learned in other places. They've helped about 5 other organizations launch 5 other jurisdictions launch alternative response, and they're helping, I think, 5 others right now, including Allegheny County. So we've been able to have weekly one-on-one meetings with them. They're helping with deliverables, monthly meetings with cohort partners, and they have a deep expertise in this. Even though this is a very new field, they're like very in the weeds and helping us in planning and implementation. This is just a summary of the kinds of likely scenarios that alternative responders would go to and some exclusions. So I went through the likely scenarios that folks would go to, but I've been working with the chiefs to come up with what are the exclusions that might make a call not appropriate for alternative response teams. Some of those include, callers who don't know the person who's in need and aren't with them. So it's just a stranger that they saw on the street and they pass by. If there's threats of physical violence or weapons that are known on the scene, if there's destruction of someone else's property, or if it's a suicide attempt in progress, those all wouldn't be reasonable for an alternative response team to go to because those require a different kind of response. We think that likely responders here, because of the fragmented first responder system, would be behavioral health professionals and crisis workers or peers, so pairing a team of 2 to go to these calls. And that initially the pilot would run for about 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 1 team per pilot area. And we're envisioning a 1-year pilot funded with grant funds from the federal government, and then ongoing figuring out ways to make it sustainable and find additional funding for future years, depending on the success of the program. And so as we get closer to possible implementation, which we're hoping would happen this summer, have been having regular protocols and operations discussions with Allegheny County Emergency Services, their 911 personnel, as well as all the chiefs from the different pilot sites to talk through, as I noted, eligible calls and exclusionary criteria, but also figure out who's going to be dispatching them, who's going to be making the decision, how are they going to communicate with the alternative response team, what if something goes wrong and they need to call for backup, how are they going to share a scene. Some of the things that we have decided on is that there's definitely going to be a way for the alternative response team to be dispatched by law enforcement. So right now, 911 lets law enforcement know about a call and law enforcement responds. In an alternative response pilot, initially what would happen is 911 would let law enforcement know about a call, and law enforcement could decide, should alternative responders go to this or should I go to this? The goal is to improve trust and understanding of what the alternative response team can handle and make those decisions maybe a little bit more automatically as time goes on and we move out of the pilot. But because of the variable information that we get from 911 at the moment, that seems like the best method. We're also going to be able to have the alternative response team go with law enforcement to a call if law enforcement thinks that would be helpful, or if law enforcement have responded to a call on their own and then think that it is a better situation for alternative responders to go to, they can respond instead. And finally, I've also been working on doing some community engagement. So in McKees Rocks, we had a community town hall. We had people come. I gave a short presentation about alternative response, and then we did some focus groups to understand what would community members want from an alternative response program. What should it look like? What kind of calls should they go to? Just to make sure that as we iterate on what alternative response looks like, it's taking into account what community members that alternative response is serving actually think their community needs. So I'm hoping to do the same thing here in Penn Hills and in Monroeville, and would appreciate any suggestions of community organizations that I should be talking to about stuff like this to plan a kind of community engagement event here as well. This is just a quick timeline of where we have been in the process, how we've gone through the research, finding communities. Now we're in the design, and I'm creating and writing up the request for proposal to find a provider who will actually be the alternative response organization, and we're hoping to implement this summer. Next slide. And so, yeah, these are some questions for you to think through, and that you can share with me. What do you think some benefits would be for alternative response? What are some challenges to implementing alternative response? And who else needs to be a part of the conversation about alternative response happening here in Penn Hills? So thank you so much.
You know, I just like to say, unless the solicitor tells me I'm out of line here, and I'm sure he will if I am, we would be happy to host the town hall. If you feel it's appropriate to be in these chambers, I don't see any reason why we couldn't host the town hall, because we would love to get input from the community.
Awesome, thank you.
Can I just ask a question?
Please, yeah, ask me all your questions.
Just so I'm clear, it sounds like what you're saying is when someone calls 911, law enforcement is dispatched. It's law enforcement who makes the decision or the determination whether or not alternate providers should come in, correct? It's not the other way around.
That's what we're thinking makes the most sense right now. All the partners at the table. In Monroeville, it may look different because they have their own 911 dispatch center, but for Penn Hills and for McKees Rocks, who depend on county 911, the expectation is that county would pass the same information they always do to law enforcement, and law enforcement would make the decision about who should go.
Okay, so the police officer would make the decision whether or not they want that type of assistance. The other thing is, so this is a pilot program, and it sounds to me like Chief Como and the other chiefs, you've been working with them, so they're actually kind of saying this relieves us of the calls that are really not law enforcement calls, and so they're welcoming this.
Yeah, I think that they recognize that they're responding to the same people over and over, and also their officers don't have the training in order to respond to these calls in the way that they want. They want to get people help, but they don't know what help is available. So by having someone who is trained in these sort of skills and in the service landscape of Allegheny County, they think they can get residents much more help than they're able to provide.
So this wouldn't go into play until we had a community meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, I think that we could plan to have a community meeting beforehand. The aim is to start this in the summer, and so we have several months in order to get a community engagement event planned and happening prior to that, so that whoever is brought on to be the alternative response provider would have that input. We also expect for the alternative response provider to do regular community engagement with the pilot communities, as well as if it expands with other communities. So it would be an ongoing community engagement process.
So at that meeting, it would be something like you would give the presentation again, and then the public would have questions and input.
It can look like that. What we did in McKees Rocks was there was a presentation and a short question and answer, and then people broke into little focus groups, and they had discussions about particular aspects of alternative response, and they provided their feedback on, what should they wear, what kind of calls should they go to, or should they not go to, what kind of communication should you have with the community? How often? What form would it look like? What should be on social media? What goals should we be looking at, and data should we be tracking in order to improve on this program? So it could look like just a Q&A, or it could be something that's more focus group oriented.
So we'll see you again.
Yeah,
Thank you so very much.
you're welcome.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Present.
Councilor Fascio,
Present.
Councilman Brodnicki,
Present.
Councilwoman Sapp contacted me and the mayor and council earlier this evening, and she was not able to attend this evening. Deputy Mayor Pecora?
Present.
May I get a motion for the approval of the minutes? Item number 4.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes, Councilman Brodnicki.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the minutes of January 23rd, 2023.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
May I get a motion for item number 5?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Fascio.
I'd like to make a motion for the ratification of expenditures in the amount of $3,113,467.43.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Greg Swatchek, 648 Gramick Lane. The invoice number, I believe, is 4462, Crescent Hill Civic Association. It's for $50,000, and I just have a question on, and I apologize, I don't know the legend of all these codings. I'm sure they're all reasonable, but toward the end it says AD, and then donation dash park improvements. And I was just wondering, is AD administrative maybe, or, okay. And then along those lines, what, if you could enlighten the public, because I don't know and I've lived here my whole life, how would one go about requesting a donation? Is that a mayor-manager thing, a mayor-council-manager thing on the side, or could the general public initiate such a thing for your ultimate decision? I just don't know what it means, donation.
Okay, Greg, here's what that is. That's money that the community, that this council approved to give money for a playground up there. And in the chart of accounts, there's only so many places that you could designate as an expense. So it's designated in our expenses as a donation. It's expending our stimulus funds for a playground, but it appears in our budget, it says donation. It had to
Okay.
be coded somewhere. That's what that is.
Okay, and then there's, I imagine, a list of things that are a candidate for that kind of earmarking. And the park is one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further public comment? Any comment from council? I just wanted to make a comment, for example, that expenditure. It's so wonderful. Often you'll see us up here and we vote on these resolutions or expenditures, even something like street paving, for example. So we make our to-do list and we have the expenditures, and then it takes time to do that because this was passed, I don't know when it was, I don't remember the exact date that it was passed, but it was passed some time ago. But by the time you get bids and the materials come forward and so forth, it takes time for these things to, we have many projects in the pipeline, and by the time it comes to fruition, sometimes it is months, weeks later. Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Councilman Brodnicki,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilor Fascio.
Yes.
Expenses approved.
May I get a motion for item number 6A?
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes, Councilman Brodnicki.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve 6A Resolution 2023-2, approving, awarding the Gascola Stream Restoration Project to Ecological Restoration Incorporated in total amount of $164,999.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Mr. Minsterman or Mr. Blackwell, would you like to give just a real, Chris is pointing over to the engineer. Would you like to give a very, a brief explanation?
Yes, thank you. This is a stream restoration project for the Gascola stream at near the water pollution control facility, the Gascola facility. And it is a combination of two compliance efforts. One is to protect an exposed sewer line that has been eroded by the stream. And the other is to meet the sediment removal requirements as part of your MS4 and pollutant reduction plan requirements. So we're able to find a location to comply with the MS4, but also protect the exposed sewer line. So the price come in under the engineer's estimate, so we're so far having some good luck with this project, and that's an excellent contractor as well. So.
Thank you so much. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki.
Yes.
Resolution 2023-2 approved.
Thank you. May I get a motion for item 6B?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Fascio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-3, approving a sewer tap-in at 407 Bon Air Road.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki.
Yes.
Resolution 2023-3 approved.
Thank you. May I get a motion for item 6C?
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes, Councilman Brodnicki.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2023-4, approving tentative agreement with the utility workers of America Local 602 for 2023 to 2025.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? I'd just like to make a comment. We finished the negotiations with the police department, and that was a really nice Christmas present. And so as you'll watch, what's happening is we're going through each contract. And I'm very happy and proud to say that we have a professional administration here. As many of you know, we are the largest municipality outside of Pittsburgh. And I'm just so very, very proud of our staff. I'm so proud of council working with our staff, and I'm very pleased at how our negotiations go, and I expect that we're going to continue in this very positive vein. Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
item D approved.
You mean item C?
I'm sorry, resolution 23-4, item C.
Thank you.
My fault.
May I get a motion for item 6D?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Fascio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-5, ratifying a grant agreement between Allegheny County and the municipality of Penn Hills for the purchase and replacement of body-worn cameras.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? I'm going to ask the manager to give a brief explanation.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. This resolution, we added it a little late in the game this week. Allegheny County has provided funding of their own for other communities as well as Penn Hills to implement body-worn cameras by law enforcement. We actually have a robust program here in Penn Hills that we're very proud of. We were probably one of the first municipal police departments, I should say, in Western Pennsylvania that had that program, and we've developed that program. However, those body-worn cameras, they need replaced also. So this money is being made available by the county. We expect that it'll come pretty fast. And it should pay for about half of the replacement cost of all of our cameras. So that's what this money is for. Our chief, he's away this evening, or he would be here to probably answer more questions about it. But we're excited to get it because of the fact that we're coming up on the replacement time for the cameras that we have in service. So this money is very welcomed by the municipality.
Any comment from council? I guess I'm the only talker tonight. I am just so excited when I look at each of our departments, among them public safety. So we have the EMS department, the police department. Some of you may be aware of the emergency vehicles that we have replaced or repaired, ambulances. We just inducted 10 new police officers. We have 5 more coming in the spring. We've also got the largest municipal police department outside the city of Pittsburgh. We've got the largest fire service. I am very, very proud of, and again, it's not my doing, but it's when you take a look around at what we do at our departments, we have really spent effort and appropriate funding for our public safety. And I think that's a hats off to our police department and each of our administrative departments. And it's even further exciting because often, through the help of the finance department and the other departments and the department heads, what we've done is we've pretty much taken a $30 million budget, and with matching grants and those efforts, we're, if you round this off, it's like we're expending $90 million in funds with a $30 million revenue base. But, and that means funding and resources for our residents, but it's not coming out of our pockets. So that's really exciting, and I always convert this to like my household budget, right? You see what your income is and what your expenses are, and it's pretty exciting to know that we're beyond making ends meet. We're being very fiscally responsible, and we're getting a lot of good things done, and it's coming from federal money, state money, county money. It's wonderful to see all the matching grants that we've received. And so I'm very grateful to the efforts of our professional staff and to council for their efforts, because it's just so wonderful to see local government dovetailing as it does, and everything. Right now, the wheels are just turning in a really positive way. Roll call, please.
Councilor Fascio.
Yes.
Councilman Brodnicki.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora.
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes.
Resolution 5 approved.
Deputy Mayor Pecora, any comments?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fascio.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to add my thanks to Kate for coming in and speaking to us. The Alternative 911 project, something I've been particularly interested in ever since I heard about the Harvard selection of Allegheny County, which alone is a feather in the cap for our region. And I think, at least partially due to Chief Como's enthusiastic participation, the fact that Penn Hills is being targeted as a pilot really speaks to what we have to offer. And I think this project, we're in a position as a pilot to both inform the developers as they work through how this is all going to fit together, but also then the benefit to both our officers and our citizens. I would urge, I realize we don't have anything planned yet, but whatever the community event / town hall / focus groups, I'd urge everybody to come and bring your friends, and this is the kind of thing that the more people who can inform the process, the better that process will end up being in the end. So it's a exciting venture. Again, thank you, and one that I think is just a win-win all around. So until, of course, we get to the continuation funding, but we'll worry about that when we get there. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Brodnicki.
I just want to say again that I'm thrilled about the last meeting we had, the non-voting meeting, as far as an advertising campaign to show all the great things about Penn Hills, the different neighborhoods. It's not as it's portrayed on the news a lot of times. There's a lot of great places in Penn Hills, fantastic people. We can get this news out and attract more new residents, and I'm just really thrilled about that.
Thank you so much. So for anybody in the audience who's not familiar with how the process works, we have the voting meetings, which is a voting meeting tonight, and they appear more formal. It is very formal, and we follow the rules, and we address each other. And then we have, on the second Monday of every month, a non-voting meeting, and that's a workshop. That's more a give and take, question and answer, ideas, and the last one that we had a week ago to this evening that Councilman Brodnicki is referring to, we had residents come in, and it was really a fabulous meeting. I think everybody would agree it was very positive. One of the things that we think is probably perhaps the biggest challenge that Penn Hills has is that as a public relations issue, the way we are portrayed in the media. So we wanted to take steps to market ourselves, to advertise all the good things, to promote the good things. People don't realize how large we are. People don't realize that we've got close to 30 neighborhoods. They don't realize the amenities that we have here. So we're going to make a concerted, conscious effort to do a marketing campaign to let the world know how fantastic we are. Every place has challenges. We get it. We have our challenges too, but we're rising to meet those challenges. And as we go through each of the departments and we take a look at what we're doing, as I said, we've got funding and we've got matching funding. I never thought it would be exciting to talk about sewers and infrastructure and roads, but it's very exciting to see what we're doing. One of the undertakings that we started was to take a look at our entrances, our gateways. Road, for example. I see Kathy Rayborn, who's head of the Shade Tree Commission here this evening. With her help and the efforts of the Shade Tree Commission, we were able to get a grant from Tree Vitalize Pittsburgh. We planted 13 trees on Rhode Road. In the spring, we'll be working on a garden to the entranceway of Rhode Road, a grant with Pennsylvania Conservancy. Duquesne Light has come out. The engineers have taken a look at any of the lights that are need replaced or repaired. We have $1 million grant for Rhode Road. Now that's a state road, so we can only do curb to curb, but we're trying to, we have a grant to repair sidewalks. Allegheny River Boulevard, I see Mr. and Mrs. Mouths here. They really, there's great efforts. Rick Duncan isn't here this evening, but he was here last time. Efforts to revitalize Allegheny River Boulevard. We received another grant, $1 million grant for the trail from Verona all the way to Boyce Park. There are just so many wonderful things happening here. I don't think there's ever been a more exciting time to see the revitalization of Penn Hills. So we are so glad that you came this evening because there's a lot of new faces in the audience tonight, and we are excited to launch to discover the new Penn Hills. I suppose that's the way we could say it. I love to give credit where credit is due, and so I'm looking at the clock, and we are about to adjourn. So I would like to give credit to council for making this one of our shortest meetings ever. With that said, Thank you so much for joining us. We do hope you will come to non-voting meetings because that's more of a workshop. And have a very good evening, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.